BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
As my cab pulled off FDR Drive, somewhere in the early hundreds, a low-slung tomahawk full of black guys came sharking out of lane and sloped in fast right across our bows. We banked and hit a deep welt in the road. To the sound of a rifle shot, the cab roof ducked down and smacked me on the core of my head. I really didn't need that, I tell you. Still drunk and crazed and ghosted from the plane. "Oh, man," I said. "Yeah," said the cabbie from behind the shattered plastic of his screen. "Fucking A." The cabbie was 40-ish, lean, balding. "Only need about 100 guys like me," he said. "Take 'em out." 100 guys, I shouted. "That's not many guys." "We could do it with the right guns." "Guns?" "Guns, yeah. 56s, automatics." I sat back and rubbed my head. I'd spent 2 hours in immigration, goddammit. I have this anti-talent for cues. "Why would you go and do a thing like that?" I asked. "They think, you drive a yellow cab," he said. "You must be some kind of scumbag." I leaned forward. "You know something?" I asked him. "You really are a scumbag." We pulled over. "Okay, get out of the car. I said out of the car, you fat fuck." There was nothing more to say. Things happen to me. They do. Inflation, they say, is cleaning up this city, but things still happen here. You step off the plane, look around, take a deep breath, and come to in your underpants somewhere south of Soho. Things still happen here, and something is waiting to happen to me. I can tell. I'm sitting on the bed in my hotel room. The pain in my face is split in two, but hurts about the same. There's a definite swelling in my jaw now, on my upper west side. It's an abscess or something, maybe a nerve deal or a gum gimmick. Oh Christ, I suppose I'll have to get it fixed. These croc teeth of mine, these English teeth, they're about as good, I reckon, as those of the average American corpse. I'm drinking tax-exempt whiskey from a tooth mug. What is my head up to? I wish I had some idea what it's got in mind for me. I want to telephone Selena right now and give her a piece of it. It's 1 a.m. over there. But it's 1 a.m. over here too, in my head anyway. And now I've got another evening to deal with. I've already had one in England and on the plane. I don't need another. Outside I see night has happened quickly. Refreshed by a brief blackout, I got to my feet. The mirror looked on, quite unimpressed, as I cleaned my teeth, combed my rug, gargled, showered, shaved, changed, and still looked like shit. Jesus, I'm so fat these days. I appall myself. Selena. My Selena. That Selena Street. Today somebody told me one of her terrible secrets. I don't want to talk about it yet. I staggered out into the lobby's teak and flicker, slapped my key on the desk. I moved to the door with boxy, schlep-shouldered strides. "Mr. Self?" "Yeah?" "Oh, sir, there was a call for you this afternoon. Caduta Massey. Is that the Caduta Massey?" "The same. Any message or anything?" "No, sir, no message." "Well, okay. Thanks." So I walked south, down bending Broadway. I heard the ragged hoot of sirens, the whistles of two-wheelers and skateboarders, pogoists, go-karters, windsurfers. I hit a topless bar on 44th. Ever check out one of these joints? I always expected some kind of mob frat house policed by half-clad chambermaids. It isn't like that. They just have a few chicks in knickers dancing on a ramp behind the bar. You sit and drink while they strut their stuff. I kept the whiskies coming at $3.50 a pop and sluiced the liquor round my upper west side. I also pressed the cold glass against my writhing cheek. It soothes. The girl, dancing topless for my benefit, and for that of the gingery hermaphroditic figure seated 2 stools to my right, had large, woeful breasts, puckered at the heart, and an eave of loose flesh climbed over the high rim of her pants. If you want my considered opinion, this chick had no kind of future in the go-go business.
"You want another scotch?"
said the matron behind the bar. The body stocking or tutu she wore was an unfriendly dull brown or caramel colour. It spoke of spinal supports, hernias. "Yeah," I said, and started smoking another cigarette. Unless I specifically inform you otherwise, I'm always smoking another cigarette. I nursed my cheek for a while with a glass. By the time I looked up again, my girl was gone.
"You want to buy Dawn a drink?"
The old dame gestured perfunctorily towards the stool beside me, where Dawn indeed perched. Dawn, my girl, now swaddled in a woolly dressing gown. "Well, what's Dawn drinking?" I asked.
"Champagne."
A squat glass of what looked like glucose on the rocks was smacked down in front of me.
$6.
$6? I flattened another 20 on the damp wood.
"Sorry,"
said Dawn with a wince.
"What's your name?"
"John."
"What do you do, John?"
"Ah, I see. A conversation." "I'm in pornography," I said, "right up to here."
"You want another scotch?"
The old boot, this headmistress in her therapeutic singlet, loomed over us with my change. "Why not?"
"You want to buy Dawn another drink?"
"Christ, yeah, okay, do it."
"Are you English, John?"
asked my girl, as if this would answer a lot of questions. "Tell you the truth, Dawn, I'm half American and half asleep. I just climbed off the plane, you know."
"You want another scotch?"
said the old boot. I felt my shoulders give. How much does it cost to keep you away from me for 10 minutes? But I said a good deal more. With her small fists on the bar, she leaned towards me and said,
"Leroy."
"Relax, Leroy. Pal, there's no problem. I'm going." I slid to my feet and found no balance. The stool wobbled roundly on its base like a coin. I waved to the watching women and made my diagonal for the door. Everything was on offer outside. Boylesque, live sex. They even had the real thing out there in prostitute form, but I wasn't buying, not tonight. I walked back to the hotel without incident. Nothing happened, but it will. The revolving door shoved me into the lobby, and the desk clerk bobbed about in his stockade.
"While you were out tonight, sir, Mr. Lorne Guyland called. Would that be the real Lorne Guyland, sir?"
"Oh, I wouldn't go that far," I said. Or maybe I just thought it. The elevator sucked me skyward. In my room, I picked up the bottle and sank back on the bed. I thought about travel through air and time, and about Selena. Oh man, sometimes I wake up, feel like a cat run over. Are you familiar with the stoical aspects of hard drinking, of heavy drinking? Oh, it's heavy. Oh, it's hard. Jesus. The disease I host, called tinnitus, woke me promptly at 9. I just rolled on my back when the telephone rang.
"John, Lorne Guyland."
"Lorne," I said. Christ, what a croak it was. "How are you?"
"Good," he said. "I'm good, John. How are you?"
"I'm fine.
"That's good, John. John."
"Lorne."
"There are things that worry me, John."
"Tell me about them, Lorne."
"I don't happen to be an old man, John."
"I know that, Lorne."
"I'm in great shape. Never better."
"I'm glad, Lorne."
"That's why I don't like it that you say I'm an old man, John."
"But I don't say that, Lorne."
"Well, okay. You imply it, John. I lead a full life. Full and active. You know, John, sometimes I just get out on that beach and run like a kid. Then I'm up half the night screwing."
It went on like this, I swear to God, for an hour and a half. When it was over, I dabbed the tears away and rang down to room service. I asked for coffee. I mean, you have to take it easy on yourself sometimes. I better give you the lowdown on Selena and quick. Her appearance is a 50-50 compromise between the primly juvenile and the grossly provocative. I've followed her down the strip when we're shopping, say, and she strolls on ahead wearing sawn-off jeans or a frock measuring the brink of her russety thighs. The men wince and watch, wince and watch. They shut their eyes and clutch their nuts. She's either 29 or 31 or just possibly 33. She's leaving it all very late and she knows it. She'll have to make her move and she'll have to make it soon. She has money to think about. Oh, Selina, come on. Tell me it isn't so. I took one more call that afternoon. It was a curious call, a strange call. Some wacko. No big deal. So now I must go uptown to meet with Fielding Goodney at the Caraway Hotel. Fielding, my money man, my contact and my pal. We're going to make lots of money together. Making lots of money is a breeze. You watch. Fielding Goodney was already in attendance when I strolled into the Caraway a little after 6. He turned and I felt the rush of his health and colour, his Californian peanut butter body tone.
"Hey there, Slick," he said, and gave me his hand. "You fly coach?"
Stand by.
"Pay more money, Slick. Fly in the sharp end or supersonic. Coach kills. Give my friend here a Rain King."
Fielding leaned back and regarded me with his embarrassing eyes, super-candid cornflower blue. Speaking as an Englishman, one of the pluses of New York is that it makes you feel surprisingly upper class, a bit brainy and blue-blooded. I don't get that feeling with Fielding. I don't get that feeling at all. "And how old are you?" I asked him. "I'll be 26 in January." Jesus Christ. Don't let that spook you, John. I followed him to the table, steadied by that human touch. "Have you spoken with Lauren?" "Yeah. The truth is, Lauren will do anything to be in this picture. This is the first real part that's come his way for 4 or 5 years. Then why do we want him? Trust me, Slick. The bottom line is, no Lauren Guyland movie ever lost money. You'll have the final cut, John, that I swear." I said, "How's the money?" "The money," said Fielding, "the money is beautiful." He called for the check. Fielding had the car waiting outside, a 6-door autocrat half a block long. He took me to an old gangster steakhouse in the Heights. It was brilliant. We talked money. Fielding signed the check. I signed some contracts directing more and more money my way. He dropped me off on Broadway. I spent an improving 4 hours on 42nd Street, dividing my time between an arcade and the basement of a go-go bar. I returned to the hotel and laid down fully clothed and backed off into sleep for the second night running in this town where the sirens say you and whoop and ow, ow, ow.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
I lay in my pit at the hotel. The tinnitus was operational pretty well full time, and that toothache of mine had got much more complicated. The telephone was a one-way instrument of torture. Caduta rang, Lorne Guyland rang. That madman, that real madman, that accredited Devo crazoid, he checked in again, son of a bitch. He's really got to me, I admit it. "What do I call you?" I once asked him. "I'll be Frank," he said, and laughed for a long time with no pleasure. His general theme was that I had ruined his life. Nothing I could do would ever make it up to him. Only my own ruin could ever do that. Someone else rang me here in New York. In my fever, out of the babble, one day came a human voice. I was lying on the bed, hugely, malely, and my winded wife fronts, boy am I butch. Then the telephone did its act, its number. One of my big beefs about Selina was that her disappearance obliged me to answer this thing whenever it rang. "Hello?" said the knowing voice. "John? Selina? Oh, right. Now you just tell me where the—" "Bad luck, it's Martina Twain." I really wasn't up to this. Not now, maybe never. She laughed at my silence. The laugh somehow established me as a waster or gadabout, but not unkindly, I thought. By this time I was sitting up straight and smoking and drinking and generally pulling myself together, for I have to tell you right off that Martina Twain is a real boss chick by anyone's standards. Pal, she's class. I've always had a remote and hopeless thing for her ever since film school. "Martina, how did you know I was in town?" "My husband told me." "Oh, really?" I said sadly. "He's in London. He just called this minute. So, why are you here?" "Oh, I'm getting a film off the ground at last." "Yes, Ozzy told me. I'm having some people over for dinner tonight. Do you want to come?" "Tonight I can't do," I said. "I have to go to this dumb party." She sounded impressed. At once I grimly instigated my miracle flu cure. You go to bed, wrap up warm, and drink a bottle of scotch. I woke to find the sheets were dry. It had passed over, moved on to another place. And I thought, home. Go home. I rang Fielding at the Caraway.
Lauren wants reassuring,
he told me. "Yeah, well, you reassure him for a while. I'm going home."
"Slick, so soon? What's the problem, women or money?"
"Both."
"When's your flight?"
10.
"So you leave for the airport at 8:45.
"No, I arrive at the airport at 8:45. I'm flying air track."
"Air track? What do they give you on air track, Slick? A spliff, a salad, and a light show? Listen, I want you to meet Butch Beausoleil before you wing out. Can you get to my club around 7?
Now this was turning into a busy day. Noon saw me queuing at the stall on 6th Avenue for a cheap thin seat on the wide-bodied, crash-prone aircraft. Only the abject fly air track. I didn't try Selina. I wanted to give her a nice surprise. Back at the hotel, the unloved room looked on in quiet martyrdom as I packed my stuff. Under the couch, I found an unopened pint of rum and started tackling that. I jumped up and down on the suitcase and must have dozed off for a few minutes. In the end, I had ample time for my farewell to New York. First off, I gave Felix the bellboy a 50. He seemed strangely agitated and for some reason kept trying to make me lie down on the bed. Leaving my bag in the lobby, I bought a joint, a popper, a phial of cocaine and a plug of opium from a fat guy in Times Square. I snuffed it all up and came bullocking out of the can. Now I come jerking and burping up the portaled steps of Fielding's club, having stopped off for a drink or two on the way. You'd think I'd be in pretty terminal shape by now, but not me. No, sir, not this baby. I was in capital fettle when the revolving doors hurled me into the hall to meet Fielding Goodney and Butch Beausoleil, the real Butch Beausoleil. I chugged into the Pluto room, loosening my tie. Boy, was it dark and hot in here. I took a bit of a toss on a stool leg and sprinted face first into a pillar, but stumbled on till I made out my friend Fielding down at the far end. Dressed in a white tux, he was whispering into the nimbus cast by a miraculously glamorous girl. She wore a low-cut silk dress in razzy grey. It rippled like television. Giving Fielding no time to intercept me, I swanned straight up to the girl and kissed her lightly on the neck. "Hi, Butch," I said. "How you doing?"
"Well, hi. John Self, an honor,"
said Butch Beausoleil.
"Hey, Slick," said Fielding. "You look really lit. Now, before I forget, here's a present for you." He handed me an envelope. It contained an air ticket, New York to London, first class. "The flight's at 9, said Fielding, "but you'll catch your plane, I guarantee it. Now, John, you look like you could use a drink." The kids were on champagne, and I soon hollered for another bottle.
I spilt a lot of that and hollered for another. Butch was a million laughs, and an obvious goer. You should have seen the way she playfully retrieved the ice cubes I kept dropping down her front. Phew, the stuff that hot fox was giving out. Heat, money, sex and fever. This is it. This is New York. This is first class. This is the sharp end. I was one happy yob up there in the Pluto room, and then another bottle appeared, and there was another room, and terrible confusion, and someone turned me by the shoulder, and I could see Fielding's face, saying... The yellow cab shouldered its way through the streets of New York, a caged van taking this mad dog home. Eventually, the white lights of the airport began to swish by my face. So far as I could tell, both my flights had flown. But a squad of surprises awaited me in the expo aviary of the terminal. The departure of the 9 o'clock flight had been delayed, thanks to a timely bomb hoax. Boarding began, first class first. I entered the tube and drank champagne in the wide red throne, tastefully curtained off from the coughing, snoring, shrieking, weeping, birth-giving innards of business, trimmer and economy. What happened out there with Fielding and Butch? I keep it away. I can't give it headroom. I've got to grow up. It's time. 11:30, Sunday morning, the Shakespeare. 5 days of London time and still no fix on Selina. And now my screenwriter, Doris Arthur, stepped into the pub. Fielding Goodney had told me that Doris was a feminist of genius. I let her seek me out in the blinding gloom. After all, Doris was the beneficiary of a university education over at Harvard there. She could find her own way. I hate people with degrees, and you hate me too, don't you? Yes, you do, because I'm the new kind, the kind who has money but can never use it for anything other than ugliness. Jan Self? She stood there, poised, peering. She wore roomy dungarees and a much-patched flying jacket. Sit down, Doris, I said, dead cool. Let me get you a pint. No, just water. I trudged to the bar in my boxy suit. Some months ago, Fielding had sent me a copy of this chick's first book, a slender album of short stories. Even I could see that her straight dialogue had a lot of swing to it, and she was certainly a little miracle to look at, with hot black eyes, a blazing, tearing mouth. Oh, man. Doris took out a pad and gazed at me encouragingly. The original idea, she whispered. You want to tell me a little about it? I mean, where was it set? I shrugged. Here, I said. Together we stared sadly round at the moist velvet plush, the brutal slab of the pool table, the armless bandits. Here, I was born upstairs. My dad owns this place. No kidding. Tell me, what's the motivation of the Butch Beausoleil character? Why is she sleeping with these two guys? Father gives her money, okay, but why the son? The son's such a meatball. Maybe he's a hot lay. That's not motivation. The whole point about the mistress is she's not just a dumb blonde, right? Fat Paul cruised past. Veronica's on, he said, and made the big tits sign, 2 caved palms raised and tensed. Ah, I said, come here. We passed through the damp dust of the velvet curtain into deeper noise, deeper smoke, deeper drink. 20 loud people watched the big woman on the small stage. For several minutes she danced slowly. I bent down and whispered into the tracery of Doris's ear. Tell me something. What's her motivation? What's theirs? Listen, I got the fiasco outside. Let's have some lunch at your hotel, then I'll take you upstairs and give you a really long lesson in motivation. She nodded and walked out through the drapes, speeded by a loud flat-hander on her rock-hard rump. Beautiful, isn't it, the way they're all the same? God bless 'em. Doris was hurriedly gathering her things. Whoa, baby, I thought. An eager one, eh?
Thanks, she said as I approached. This is one of the worst times I've had for years.
Come on, darling, you know you love it.
You asshole, she said. I didn't know they were still cranking them out. You think that despite ourselves, women like me are attracted to men like you?
She swiveled. I lurched forward to intercept her. I failed. I fell over the table instead. As I climbed upright and started brushing the wet shards from my suit, I saw that my father was watching me through the vent of the red curtains. I drove myself home from Pimlico to Portobello in my purple Fiasco. Now, my Fiasco, it's a beautiful machine, a vintage-style coupe with oodles of dash and heft and twang. There are some who believe the Fiasco errs on the side of ostentation, that the Fiasco is in questionable taste. But what do they know? It was 6:30. Time to repent. I called Doris Arthur at her hotel and did a lot of apologising. Doris let me off pretty lightly. She's getting $100,000 to stay interested. On the quartz coffee table sat a deck of unopened mail. One bore an ink-written address referring to me as Mr. John Self, Esquire. I tore its throat open with my heart climbing. John, darling, take me back. I can't believe you meant those terrible things you said. Send for me, please. Love, your Selina. P.S. I'm penniless.
I knew it would be you,
Selina said on the phone with urgent, husky restraint in her low, louche voice. Come here. Come home, I said in the same kind of way. I want you. Now, get a taxi.
A taxi?
Do it.
Yes.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Dangerously excited, italicized with surefire lust, I roved into the foaming malls. My mission? To buy champagne. Selina, she likes a lot of outlay. You cannot do pornography by halves. I walked home the long way round to kill time before she came, my shop-soiled Selina once more going cheap in the sales. How I love it. Like Selina, this area is going up in the world. Ad execs, money men, sharp-faced young marrieds, they're all moving in. Oh yeah, a writer lives round my way too. It gives me the creeps. This writer's name is Martin Amis. Never heard of him. Do you know his stuff at all? The evening at last has reached its promised, its destined stage. We've just got back from dinner at Kreutzer's. Kreutzer's provides the costly setting of our reunions, our foreplay and our lies. There have been brandies and thick puddings. Selina is in high spirits, and as for me, I'm a gurgling wizard of calorific excess. Later, with her resting body spread out beside me on the satin, I smoked a cigar and finished the champagne and thought about the good life. Deep down, I'm a pretty happy guy. Happiness is the relief of pain, they say. And so I guess I'm a pretty happy guy. Selina brings me pain. She relieves it. I'm certainly relieved now she's back. At least when she's with me, she's not with anyone else. She wants a joint bank account. I've got to have some independence. Yeah. Selina maintains that a joint bank account is essential to her dignity and self-respect. So I opened a joint bank account. I filled out the forms, coldly supervised by the watchful Selina. That morning she went to bed in black stockings, tasselled garter belt, satin thong and gold choker. I made a real pig of myself, I have to admit. Things had unquestionably improved, what with all this new dignity and self-respect about the place. So, the fiasco needs a major overhaul, Selina has a joint account, Barry Self owes me money. I've got to head back to America pretty soon and earn lots more. You know, the one thing I want more than anything else, you could call it my dream in life, is to make lots of money.
I have travelled widely, said Fielding Goodney, in the world of pornography. Always endeavour, Slick, to keep a fix on the addiction industries. You can't lose. The addicts can't win. Dope, liquor, gambling, anything video. These have to be the deep money veins.
Yes, I said. I sipped my crimson drink. We were in an Italian restaurant well south of Soho, Tribeca somewhere. Fielding said it was a mob joint, and I believed him. Brocade, matte light, as quiet as a church. Goodney, in his white suit, suntan and sliding blonde hair, stood out like a pink elephant among the sin-sick funeral directors lurking and cruising against the blood-coloured walls. Over dinner, we went on to discuss our distribution problem, which, according to my pal Fielding, was absolutely non-existent. The kid had it all worked out. As he talked, and as I hunkered down to a long train of grappa and espresso, I felt the clasp and nuzzle of real money. Money, my bodyguard. I walked unsteadily through the heat of the pornographic night. As for my own body clock readings and time travel coordinates, well, it was 6 a.m. in here and fuming with booze. I'd travelled far that day through space and through time. Man, how I needed to crash. Now you've seen me in New York and you know how I am out here. I wonder what it is. Something to do with the energy, the electricity of the place, all the hustle and razz. It fills me with that get up and go. I was at it again first thing this morning, straight down to business, despite my jet lag and the kind of hangover that would have poleaxed any lesser man. Lying in bed with telephone, address book, ashtray and coffee cup efficiently arranged on the poof of my gut, I buckled down to the first item of business, Caduta Massey. Like everyone else, I'd seen Caduta many times up on the big screen. I used to beat off nights about her when I was a kid like everyone else. Now, at 40-odd, she could still play the right kind of romantic lead, given a sufficiently elderly co-star. Fielding argued that Caduta was crucial to the package, and you have to follow the money in a case like this. She asked me to come to an address in Little Italy at 2 o'clock that afternoon. To put it at its highest, I was in no more than so-so shape by the time I reached Caduta's. "Now, Mr. Self, John, our movie," said Caduta Massey. "I see from the outline the lady is from Bradford." "Well, that was the English version. Now we've switched to New York." "I prefer Florence or Verona." "Sure, take your pick." "Good," said Caduta. "Tell me, John, this Teresa, how old is she?" 30-ish. I gazed at Caduta warily. "I myself am 41. "No kidding," I said. "Well, that's perfect." "So why should a woman of this age be taking off her clothes and demanding sex all the time?" I sat with a cup of coffee on my lap, still half asphyxiated by what I took to be Neapolitan warmth. The place was crawling with kids. Bundles, toddlers, nippers, loping adolescents. I coughed and said, "I'm sorry, Caduta, but what is all this?" "Mr. Guyland, he said there were to be several explicit love scenes." "With you?" She lifted her chin and nodded. "Lorne Guyland said Mr. Goodney promised him 3 long love scenes with full nudity." "Good God, how old is Guyland?" "He's a disgusting person. Listen, Mr. Self, John, I need your reassurance that this will not happen." "You got it." "I'll be frank with you, John. I am 43, as I say. My tits are not good anymore." Holding my eye, Caduta parted the flounces of her shirt. She freed the clip that marked the centre point of her cleavage in the hefty brassiere. "Come, John," she said. I stood up. I moved forward. I knelt. She gathered my face to her heart. I sensed all the voluminous stirrings in there, deep among the mortal heaviness. You never had a mother, did you, John? My voice was muted, but what I said was, no, I never did. How about that Caduta, though, eh? Mind you, if you think she behaved strangely, you should have seen me. I had an incredible crying jag. So did Caduta. Everyone was beaming and weeping at this display, this proof of human richness. But what can you expect from me? There are times these days when I feel so starved of warmth that the instructions on a painkiller packet can make me go all husky and brave. And I certainly appreciated the faceful that Caduta laid on me. I sniffed and rootled around down there for at least 10 minutes, and I was still brimming with plangency, chock full of feeling when I arrived back at the hotel. Oh, what a long day. What a day. You know what time it is, my time? 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Over a fanatically carnivorous lunch in an Argentinian joint on 82nd Street, my friend Fielding had been very reassuring on the whole Lorne Caduta question. All the conflicts, he explained, would melt away the minute we had a screenplay in our hands. Doris Arthur was back in the States typing away at her rented cottage in Long Island. The first draft, Fielding promised, was only 3 weeks away. There is only one earthling who really cares about me. At least this human being loyally follows me around the place, keeps tabs on me and rings me up the whole time. No one else does. Selena's never there. But Telephone Frank talks about chicks a good deal.
You just take women and toss them aside like salad.
Wrong. I keep trying to do that, but none of them will stand for it.
Women for you, they're just pornography.
Listen, pal, I've got a date. Lots of rich, pretty people are expecting me downtown.
We'll meet one day.
I'm really looking forward to it. Okay, Frank, I'll see you around. I arrived at Bank Street in the very last of the light. It looked like a chunk of sentimental London, black railings and pale blossoms, even a cautious whiff of twig and leaf in the night-scented air. I had about half an hour to kill, I reckoned. Taking a couple of rights, I found myself on the ramp of Lower 8th Avenue. You think I'm paranoid, but I tell you, man, there is something going on. Are you in on it? I've had this terrible feeling ever since I came to New York last time. It's not the film, but something else is not fine. Something bigger. Turning from a storefront window, I was confronted by a 6-foot woman with ginger hair, bobble hat and veil. Her leaning presence was deliberate, challenging. Yeah, I said, but she just stood and stared through her mask. Now, where have I seen her before? I found a place that was clearly headlined as a singles bar, and no one tried to keep me out, so I joined the half-dozen speechless loners and got to work on the sidecars. 8:20, no sweat. Here's to you, Martina, I said to myself, and flattened out a 20 on the moist zinc. You remember Martina Twain? She and I go way back. The thing about Martina is that I can't find a voice to summon her with. I think of her, and there is speechless upheaval in me. Her English husband, Ozzy, now, he's rich for life, but he works in money, in pure money. Sitting in his spectral towers on 6th Avenue in Cheapside, blonde Ozzy uses money to buy and sell money. Lots of it. It is beautiful, and so is he. I switched from sidecars to old fashions. I'm always early for these dinner parties anyway. I leave it late, but never late enough. Barkeep, let's do it again. 15 minutes later, or it may have been 20, I rang the doorbell. I was drunk, okay, but I was getting my second win by now. I straightened my tie and guided back my hair with my hands. I rang again, a good, long ring. The door sucked open. Ozzy was standing there in shirt sleeves. I could see Martina down the end of the passage, aproned with plates in her hand. "Hey, my man," I croaked, "was coming down a track." "It's late," said Ozzy. "Go home, John, just go home." The door cracked shut. What's with him, I wondered. So I'm running a bit behind schedule. I looked at my watch. It said 1:15. Then I remembered something. That's right. I'd already been to the dinner party. And something told me I hadn't behaved too well.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Today is my birthday. I am 35 years old. Morning came and I got up. That doesn't sound particularly interesting or difficult, now does it? Listen though, I was lying face down under a hedge. Next I had to frisk myself to make sure I had my wallet, limbs, face, dick, being. Then I had to find a cab to get back here. I composed a letter to Martina. I apologised for my behaviour and asked if I could buy her lunch sometime. Me and my sore back then had cocktails with Butch Beausoleil. There was no mention of the debacle in the club, thank Christ. Me and my sore back have had several meetings now with Fielding's money men. Fielding smoothed his back against the scalloped seat of the limousine like a cat. "I say we go with Spunk," he said firmly. "He's not really called that, is he?" Fielding gave his laugh, his rich, his $1,000,000 laugh. "Ha! Maybe," he said, "maybe for the British market we call him Scum. It's a problem, you've got to admit. I talked with his agent. He knows Spunk's going to have his name fixed sometime. You want a drink?" "No, thanks." "What's the matter? It's 5 o'clock." "No, thanks." I had my reasons. The good news is that Martina called this morning and we're having lunch tomorrow. The bad news is that the good news made me feel so relieved and excited that I ran out to a bar and drank a bunch of big ones. "Concentrate, Slick," said Fielding. "The entire package pivots on this. I say we go with Spunk. You better give me a scotch." This Davis character I'd heard of but never seen in action. A Broadway boy with one film in the can. Prehistoric was still at the editing stage. We were going to see the rough cut. We alighted at an address on double-barreled Park Avenue. Our greeter led us into the executive screening parlour. Davis's agent was there, Herrick Schnecksnader, a desperate human being who wore a French smock and a prosciutto cravat. I drank the limitless champagne on offer and listened to Herrick's obsequious banter. Spunk's fee was now $500,000. Fielding just nodded and said, "And what does his availability look like?" His availability looked good, partly because after Prehistoric no one could afford to hire him. Prehistoric started with a long pan over a series of cave murals. A man, a woman, a fight, a tiger, a spaceship. We backed off. A tribe of pre-fire ape people were huddled about the place. There was Spunk sharpening his spear. The spaceship beamed him to Greenwich Village 1980. The film now turned into a gentle parodic love story, a girl civilizing Spunk, teaching him how to dress, eat, speak. Throughout, Spunk wore a silent gaze of uncomplaining bafflement and reserve. I turned to Fielding and asked, huskily, "Can he talk? I mean, properly?"
"Spunk? Sure. He did Richard II off-Broadway last fall."
"Okay, Slick, what do you say?" "I say we go with Spunk." The next rendezvous had been riding high on my chart of dreads. How is that? How can a quiet lunch with a beautiful and intelligent girl in a licensed restaurant be the cause of dread? But in the end it soothed me. Only when you are soothed do you realize how much you needed soothing. I was going insane. I was dying. Before we talked about the phantom dinner party, we talked about aesthetics. Or rather, Martina did. I could follow her drift for seconds at a time. We were lunching in the West Village, licensed, sure, but with a suspicion of health food, of careful eating, of macrobiotics and longevity. I craved liquor, but survived on frequent tureens of white wine. You better tell me about the other night. The suspense is killing me.
You really can't remember?
Then she told me. I was relieved. Between ourselves, I was even quite impressed. Apparently, I windmilled in at 9:45 with 3 bottles of champagne, all of which I dropped in one catastrophic juggle. Full of beans, I took my seat at the stalled dinner. Then for the next 25 minutes, I told a joke. Oh, Jesus, what sort of joke?
Something about a farmer's wife?
Oh, Jesus, what then? Then I went to sleep. I didn't simply black out at the table, oh no. I stood up, yawned and stretched, and threw myself onto a nearby sofa. There I snored and whinnied for nearly 3 hours, awaking refreshed and raring to go at a little after 1. Everyone had gone. I went too. Then I came back again. Then I went away again.
You said something to me as you left the first time.
What? She smiled rawly, savagely, a tomboy smile.
You said you loved me.
And what did you say?
I said, don't be an idiot.
Well, maybe it's true, I said, emboldened.
Don't be an idiot,
said Martina. Hey, I said, how come you always know when I'm in New York and when I go back?
Ozzy tells me. He's back and forth from London all the time. He must know people you know. How's your girlfriend?
I considered. Then I said, or perhaps one of my voices said it for me, I don't know, I mean, you can be with someone and still be alone.
She's beautiful.
True, I said. How's Ozzy? She didn't say anything. Instead, she asked me why I thought I drank so much, and I told her why I thought I did. I'm an alcoholic, I said.
No, you're not. You're just a greedy kid with nothing better to do. Aren't you tired of it?
I've been tired of it for years. Fielding and I stood in the hot, sandy bucket of the street, watching First Avenue's wall of death.
Okay, so Spunk's religious. The kid's a saint, you know that? Works in hospitals, gives money to charity.
Like I say, another nutter.
But that kid is going to be very, very big. Spunk's hot slick. Hey, Fielding said, it's too bad you have to get back.
We embraced, a tight clasp with cheeks touching, but dead butch, naturally. Man, did I need that living squeeze. Now the autocrat was nosing down the curb. Fielding had me double-sign some contracts on the hood, the usual, once under co-signatory, once under self. Then he vanished behind the black glass. London. Fat Vince is beer crate operative and freelance bouncer at the Shakespeare. I have a feeling for Fat Vince. Every couple of months he takes me aside and, his breath sweet with trapped drink, asks me how I am. No one else does this. No one. I took my pint to the bar and scored a bag of crisps and a sachet of pork scrunchies. I looked up. The glass door opened. My father stared out. "Hi, Dad," I said. "Don't call me that," he said with a flinch. "Call me Barry." "Now," he said, placing a creaky arm across my shoulders, "I want you to meet Vron." "Vron?" He's doing it with robots now, I thought. "Yeah, Vron," he said. "Now,
You behave.
Vron reclined on a dramatic sofa of white corduroy. She was a pale brunette of comfortable build, my age. I'd seen her before somewhere.
Vron's a very happy girl today, said my father huskily. It's a very special day for my Vron. Show him, Vron.
Vron reached under the coffee table and produced a pornographic magazine called Debonair.
Sit down, John, she said,
and rubbed the seat beside her with her palm. Wetting her fingertips, Vron plucked at the pages. With a sigh that was almost a gurgle of gratification, she found the slippery spread. She laid it on my lap in a soft caress. From the right-hand page, Vron's face stared me in the eye. I turned the page. There was Vron on a steel chair with a heavy breast in each fist. Now I recognized her. Veronica, the talented stripper, here at the Shakespeare. My father slapped a hand on the cocktail console.
Pink champagne. Well, it's not every day, is it? Come on, Veron. Here's looking at you, my love.
Selina was sitting up in bed when I went through with my drink.
How was Barry?
Oh, okay.
Did you meet his new slag? He says he's going to marry her. He made another pass at me the other day.
He didn't. What happened?
He stuck his head up my skirt.
Intriguingly enough, the only way I can make Selina actually want to go to bed with me is by not wanting to go to bed with her. It never fails. It really puts her in the mood. While making love, we often talk about money. I like it. I like that dirty talk.
Let's be realistic for once, shall we? She said later. You're too thick to realise I'm your last chance. Who else is going to put up with you? You're hardly a catch. Grow up for God's sake. I'd settle for you, settle for me, marry me, make a commitment. At least let me move in here properly.
All right. Yeah. Okay, I said. California, land of my dreams and longing. You've seen me in New York and you know what I'm like there, but in LA, man, I tell you I'm even more of a high achiever. All fizz and push, a fixer, a bustler, a real new dealer. Last December, for a whole week, my 30-minute short Dean Street was being shown daily at the Pantheon of Celestial Arts. I met Fielding on the flight back to New York. We both happened to be travelling first class. I fastened my safety belt at LAX. Toasting John Self with pre-mixed martinis, I too was a cocktail shaker of hilarity and awe. "You're so lucky, you're so lucky," I murmured, staring down at the rocky Rockies or the Smokies or the Ropies through cloud cover made of snow and contour tracing. In the next throne along lounged an elegant young man, summer business suit, cal tan. I took him for an actor. He raised his glass. "Here's to luck," he said, "and to money." Well, I didn't need much prompting, and soon babbled out all my dreams and dreads. It transpired that he'd been scouting at the festival. He'd seen Dean Street, and he liked what he saw, and to follow, I told him about Bad Money. Another short, no big deal. We talked, we made plans, we exchanged numbers, as you do on aeroplanes. It's the booze, it's the canned air and the rich quick stories. It's the pornography of travel. "I'll call you," he said when our tunnels parted at Kennedy. Oh, sure, I thought, as I queued for my ticket to London. 3 days later, he rang me at my sock. He said, "We have Lauren Guyland, we have Butch Beausoleil, we have $8 million and climbing. Get your butt on a bird, Slick, and let's make bad money."
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
The phone rang. Fielding Goodney with all kinds of developments. A dream script had come through from Doris Arthur. Caduta Massey and Butch Beausoleil had put their signatures on the line. Spunk wanted in, Lorne wanted out. Money was falling from the sky quicker than Fielding could catch it. If everything went okay, I'd be able to sleep with Selina every night for the rest of my life. 3 years ago, when I started to make some real money, my father hit bad trouble on the tables and the track, and do you know what he did, that funker? He submitted a bill for all the money he'd spent on my upbringing. That's right, he invoiced me £19,000. On receipt of my cheque, my father got drunk and put the money on a horse running in the Cheltenham Golden Shield. He says he's going to repay me one of these days. Who cares? I hate to do this to you, Slick, but you gotta go see Lorne Guyland tonight. Oh, man. I shaved, showered, changed, drank a mug of duty-free, and took a hot cab ride into the East 80s. My mission? To go reassure Lorne Guyland. Lorne wanted reassurance about his youthfulness, athleticism, and general popularity. Lorne wanted reassurance about the nature of his role. Me too, pal. Lorne, I sympathise. Lorne's role was that of Gary, the no-good-Nick father. In my treatment, I thought, made it pretty clear what Gary was like. Gary was like my father Barry, Barry's self. A lantern-jawed know-nothing, a master-mould of brute conceit who nonetheless exploits a small but tenacious legacy of charm and luck. What is this big deal about dads and sons? I don't know. I'm Thursday, said the girl at the door of Lorne's penthouse. I'll just buzz up. Mr. Guyland, sir, your director's here. Sure, lover, you got it. Then she turned. He's right up there. I climbed a padded spiral staircase. I climbed from the stalls to the gods. Lorne surged across a cloud of carpet, seventh heaven, dressed in a white robe. He poured me a whiskey. I was surprised to taste whiskey rather than ambrosia in the frosted glass. Then Lorne gazed at me for a very long time, in ripe candour.
I see this Garfield as a man of some considerable culture, said Lorne Guyland. A poet, a seeker. He has the world in his hands, women, money, success. But this man probes deeper. In the opening shot, I see Garfield at a lectern, reading aloud from a Shakespeare first edition, bound in unborn calf.
I stared grimly across the room as Lorne babbled on. Who, for a start, was Garfield? The guy's name is Gary. Barry isn't short for Barfield, is it? It's just Barry, and that's that. Like all film stars, Lorne was about 2'9", but the old prong was in good nick, you had to admit, with that tan and silver sheen of the all-American robot kings. This fizzy old dog bayed and barked into the night. Time passed. Abruptly, Lorne halted mid-sentence and said,
I think it's time we talked about the death scene, John.
What death scene?
Why, Lord Garfield's. The mob guys are torturing me. Butch and Caduta are forced to watch. Maybe they're nude too. And these two women, as they see me, silent, suffering, naked. The guy who's the greatest fuck in their goddamn lives. These women, these simple, nude women, they forget their rivalry and weep in each other's arms. Credits.
It was another hour before Thursday let me out. The script conference ended with Lorne shrugging his robe to the floor and asking me with tears in his eyes,
Is this the body of an old man?
I said nothing. The answer to Lorne's question, incidentally, was yes. I slanted west through the pretty east side with its decorative dustbins and smell of dark, hot trash, and dined blind with Fielding Goodney and Doris Arthur in a loud media restaurant. Doris's script was being gimmicked by the typists. I called for champagne. I demanded to see the rough. Teasingly, they said I'd have to wait-see. With additional champagne, we drank to Dot's dream script. My knee brushed hers once, twice, and I thought, how wonderful it was when two young people started falling in love. I kept banging my way to and from the can. Refreshed, I said hi to a few film stars, briefly joining them at their tables with a selection of apposite one-liners. As Fielding led me back to our table, I made a powerfully worded verbal pass at a salacious waitress, who appeared to be all for it, but then came down with some deep sorrow in the kitchen. I hollered for more fortified wine, and then I went off on a run that would have taken me all the way downtown if the dessert trolley hadn't been there to check my sprint. The whole restaurant cheered me on as I fought my way out into the night. I leaned panting against a lamp-post, while Doris tenderly removed the segments of toffee, orange and chocolate cake that still clung to my suit. "You asshole," Doris smiled. Then her face changed, and she told me something so terrible, so strange, so annihilating, that I can't remember a word she said. People's faces swung sideways as I tunneled backwards into my cab. "Wait, watch. Yes, here she comes again. I have to tell you that a woman is following me around New York. She watches me through a black veil that hangs from a black hat. She reminds me of someone. I can't think who."
Hi,
said a voice behind me. I quit reading and looked round. This was no place to be caught reading in. A macho gay bar in a 5-fathom basement beneath the charred East 20s. "Oh, hi. How you doing?"
good. You like this place? Okay. What do you want to talk to me about?
Spunk sat on the stool beside me. He ordered a glass of water. Now I had to remember that this was a complicated young guy. Spunk didn't drink. He didn't smoke. He didn't sniff. He didn't eat. He didn't gamble. He didn't swear. He did push-ups. "Spunk, it's about your name."
"Yeah? What about it?"
"You're probably going to hate me for this. The thing is, Spunk," I said, "in England..."
"I know what you're going to say."
I waited.
"You want me to put an E in Davis? Well, forget it, Self. I ain't doing it."
"No," I said, "Spunk, you can keep Davis exactly as it is. It's the other bit we have the problem with."
"You mean Spunk?"
He looked surprised, wrong-footed. "The thing is, in England, it means something else."
"Sure, it means grit, pluck, courage."
"True, but it also means something else."
"Sure, it means fight, guts, balls."
"True, but it also means something else."
"What?"
I told him. He was devastated. "I'm sorry, Spunk, but that's the way it is."
"To hell with England!"
"You could just change it a little. How about Spank?"
"Spank? What kind of name is Spank?"
"There are quite a few American names like that. Skip, Flip, Trip, Hank, Hunk Davis," I said experimentally.
"You say one more word and I'll rip my ears off."
Suddenly Spunk slid to his feet. Then, with the chunky knuckles of his right hand, he sent his full tumbler of water surfing Western style up the skiddy steel bar. "Spunk," I said, but Spunk just walked away. Coolly, I ordered another drink and swiveled on my stool. If Spunk had been hoping to rattle me by picking this place for a venue, then Spunk was out of luck. I had a few tire-sized pizzas, cabbed back to the hotel. I then had dinner at the Barbarigo, my local Italian joint. Big day tomorrow. I'm seeing Martina. The next day I returned from my lunch break at 4:45 in excellent form, having looked in at a bar or two on my way back across town. I rang Martina and mellifluously arranged to meet her at the Tanglewood on 5th Avenue. She made some footling objection, I can't remember what. I arrived in good time. I ordered a bottle of champagne. I drank it. She didn't show. I ordered a bottle of champagne. I drank it. She didn't show. So I decided I might as well get loaded. And once that was accomplished, I'm afraid I have to tell you that I threw caution to the wind. What happened to you? I asked the telephone. I was all prepared to be big about it.
I didn't show up.
Yes, so I seem to recall. I waited. Why didn't you?
No point. I tried to cancel on the telephone, but you weren't listening.
I waited, I said. Martina sighed.
You were drunk. You know, it's quite a lot to ask to spend the whole evening with someone who's drunk.
I'd always known the truth of this, of course, but usually people are considerate enough not to bring it up. The truth is very tactless. Meet me tonight. I won't be drunk, I promise. Look, I'm really sorry about last night.
Last night?
Yeah, things got a little out of hand.
It wasn't last night. It was the night before. Call me at 8. If you're drunk, then I'll just hang up.
Then she just hung up. The truth is, I haven't been behaving as well as I've led you to believe. No doubt you suspected that it was all too good to be true. I go to 3rd Avenue for hand jobs. I go to adult movies on 42nd Street. I go to porno loop parlours. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't dare tell you earlier in case you stopped liking me. I found a book match in my jacket pocket. Zelda's, dinner and hostess dancing. Where else have I been? Maybe I should ask the woman who trails me around New York. She'd know. Martina brought me a glass of white wine and parked me on the terrace as she went upstairs to change. We ate in. Omelette, salad, fruit, cheese. I'll own up now and say that I've always secretly suspected that what Martina fancied was a bit of rough. That's right, me in the sack. I mean, what am I here for tonight? My conversation? Mind you, she always appeared to like me. I used to see them around in the 60s, Ozzy and Martina, the optimum couple. Ozzy was an actor then. I knew Martina from way back at film school. I behaved doggedly well all evening. By then I saw what this Martina Twain character was after. Friendship. No sex or duplicity or complication, no money, just frictionless human contact. Well, that's no fucking use to me, is it? I thought at first. I was out of my mind with sobriety, teetotaled. I felt lightheaded. I felt downright drunk, eating dinner up here with this sicko who saw nothing in me but myself. Jesus, what kind of pervert am I dealing with now? I did try a gimmick on her, though, as I took my leave at 11:30. Say, I said, I had a swell dream about you the other night.
Oh, yes? What happened in it?
Well, I was sort of rescuing you in my car. It's a fiasco. And then the car wouldn't start.
It was probably drunk,
said Martina, smiling as she opened her door to let me out.
BBC Sounds, music, radio, podcasts.
I want to thank you, John,
said the telephone.
for our date the other night.
Which night?
Saturday night. Don't tell me you don't remember.
Frank the phone again, giving me a hard time. Actually, I was still deeply curious about Saturday night. The harder I tried to remember, or let's be more accurate, the harder I fought to keep memory away, the more convinced I became that something really bad had happened, something definitive, something life-wrecking.
You find a book match in your pocket? I wrote a message for you inside.
Oh, yeah. I went to the wardrobe and frisked my suit. Here, the telltale book match, Valentine pink, the colour of sweet lipstick, Zelda's, dinner and hostess dancing. I snapped it open and got the message. Oh, you sick bat. Will you tell me something? Why are you doing this?
Oh, it's motivation you want? Okay, here, have some motivation.
Then he made his longest speech to date.
Remember in Trenton, the school on Bud Street, the pale boy with glasses in the yard? You made him cry. It was me. Last December, Los Angeles, the hired car you were driving when you jumped that light in Coldwater Canyon. A cab crashed and you didn't stop. The cab had a passenger. It was me. 1978, New York, when you were auditioning at the Walden Center, remember? The redhead, you had her strip and then passed her over and you laughed. It was me. Yesterday, you stepped over a bum in Fifth Avenue and you looked down and swore and made to kick. It was me.
I don't remember the pale boy with glasses, but no doubt there were one or two, and I was a mean kid. I was in LA last December, and I hired a car all right. There were near things. There were skids. I did hold auditions in the Walden Center in 78. There must have been the odd redhead among them, and I was my usual working self. I was a mean kid in 1978. I was a mean kid last year. Yesterday I was walking up Golden Fifth Avenue when I saw something you see pretty often over here, a have-not, a real flat-earther, a New York nomad lying face down on the flagstones. As I stepped over him, I looked down and said, rather affably, "Get up, you lazy bastard." I walked on and hailed Fielding as he strolled out of a bookstore. At 11 o'clock, Felix the bellboy woke me with 4 smartly bound volumes of Good Money, a screenplay by Doris Arthur based on an original idea by John Self. I ordered 6 pots of coffee and did my bathroom routine simultaneously like a one-man band, and settled down. I flapped through Good Money in just under 2 hours. Then I burst into tears, smashed a chair, threw a full coffee pot at the door, and kicked the base of the bed with such savage power that I had to run round the room with a pillow in my mouth until I at last staunched my screams. "Someone's fucking me around!" I said aloud. Then I was off running again. I moved at speed through the first-floor vestibule, up to the double doors of the bedroom. I seized both knobs. Fielding sat at the foot of the bed, unstartled. Behind him, naked on the sheets, lay the hard, dark body of a young boy. "Something the matter, Slick?" "The script," I said. "Yeah, don't you love it?" "It's a disaster, and you know it." "How so?" "The stars, they'll never touch that shit." "The stars are all signed up," Fielding said. "They'll do it. Or our attorneys move in on this. You wanted the realism, John." "That's not realism, it's vandalism." "Don't you see what we're sitting on here, Slick? Good Money will be the only movie of the year, the decade, the era that will show the real delirium of film, the nakedness of actors, what it does to... I'm not fooling around. Doris goes. I'll get the script I need. I'll get my man in, don't worry. Jesus, if Caduta read one word of that crap, or Lorne..." "They're reading it now," he said. "I had copies limoed over this morning." "Okay," I said. This was my move, my shot. "Now, there's going to be a shitstorm, and you're going to handle it, pal, because I'm flying out tonight. Doris goes, or I go. Time to travel." Selina is up to something. I just know it. Yesterday at noon, I cabbed in from Heathrow. Selina was attentive, all present and correct in the spotless sock, as if she'd just beamed down. I kissed her. Her mouth evaded mine. Hoping for the best, I whisked her off to Kreutzer's. Skillfully and at high speed, I drunk drove her back to the sock. She wouldn't come to bed with me. That really got me going. It was high time, I mused, that she had her own US approach or vantage card, possibly both. She still wouldn't come to bed with me. Nodding to myself, I wrote out a cheque for 3,000 quid. Then she offered me a hand job. I lit 2 cigarettes and tapped out the 14 digits. It was 7 a.m. over in Manhattan there. Fielding was businesslike, as if this project were one of many. It's his new style with me, ever since the Doris Arthur debacle. I miss the human touch, but I can butch it out. Fielding, of course, had heard of Martin Amis, although he hadn't read his stuff.
"Give the guy a check today. Get him writing now. How's your flow?"
I said my flow was only so-so. Fielding told me to use the retainer account, which he would shortly replenish. I fixed a drink and yanked out the directory. Martin Amis was in the book, all right. With a premonitory rustle of shopping, Selina hurried in through the front door. She said she was tired, took a painkiller and went to bed. There was no question of me lumbering in after her. I tell you, this Martin Amis, he lives like a student. Just 2 dust-furred rooms off a sooty square. This feels like a good bit of work to me. It's certainly unusual, he said. Doris Arthur's screenplay lay cracked out on his lap. What's your problem? We have a hero problem. We have a motivation problem. We have a realism problem. What's your realism problem? I told him. It took a long time. And so, yeah, that's where you come in, I said. That wouldn't be writing, he said. That would be psychotherapy. Here's the deal. Talk to me. I named the sum. Jesus, it sounded an awful lot for a writer. Martin laughed. I think he gulped. Pounds or dollars? He asked. Pounds, I said, offhand. I let him shrug and pout for a while. I'm going to say no. Ah, son of a bitch. What? Why? I said with a rush of bitter heat. Nothing personal, he said. I just don't know enough about you. This film, who's directing it? Are you? To make a film, you need energy. Now you, I keep thinking if he blinks, he'll have a heart attack. Yes, he's clever. I'm going to double it. I named the revised figure and felt a nauseous twinge in my balls. I'll do it. Thank you, Martin. The check's good, I said, handing it over. I'll need the first draft in 2 weeks. He looked up at the tumbling zeros. He said, This isn't realistic. I stood up sharply, energetically. Martin flinched. I've just gone off sex, said Selina this morning as she finished the tea I'd fondly brought her. So? I asked her. God, be nice. Use your imagination. It'll pass. I've just gone off sex. Then what do you think is the point of you? I wanted to say. But I didn't. I resisted the temptation. I looked into the proud drama of her face. Then what do you think is the point of you? I said. You, she said, are unreal. It's lucky for little Selina that I've stopped hitting women. Next, the Shakespeare to see my dad, to look for clues to this whole deal with fathers and sons. My father was moodily auditioning strippers in the old saloon. I said, What's happened to Vron? Stripping's not good enough for Vron anymore. I can't do a thing with her since Debonair. She doesn't strip, she does physical culture. She did physical culture on stage here last Wednesday, and a right bloody disaster it was too. I had to give out refunds. Heartbreaking. Hey, I want to ask you something. You'll get your money, he said, and faced me for the first time. It's not about the money, I said. It's about your wedding plans. Oh, them. He shrugged. That's Selina. His sneer deepened. I bet she's a dirty one, am I wrong? Selina, I said with instinctive loyalty, soppy old fool that I am. She's filthy. He grunted and turned away. Off you go, my son. Run along. Terry Linex sat sprawled in his den at my old ad agency, Carburton and Linex. He buzzed through for whiskey and ice.
Well, old son, he said, how's life in the fast lane? What can I do for you?
It's about my golden handshake. I sipped my drink.
It's in the pipeline, he said.
How much? Say 60,000.
Got to be. Are you still with that street number?
Selina Street. I obeyed instinct. I said, No, that's all over. Why?
Good,
said Terry and yawned.
I did a swimsuit session last week. I only pulled the model, didn't I? Straight off to Smith's.
Smith's was a bijou little sex chalet off Park Lane, well known and much patronised in ad game circles. 35 notes got you a room for an hour plus a bottle of champagne.
At the head of the queue is this Selina and a fella.
What fella?
Tall bloke with fair hair. Anyway, the fella knows the form and asks for evening accommodation, a bed rental. Then Selina does her nut. I've never been so insulted in all my life, all this. So the bloke pays the full whack. I had a good laugh about it after.
The name? The guy's name? Terry shrugged and stretched.
It must be in the book somewhere. I'll give you a bell in the morning. You're well out of that.
I came barrelling out of there and marched straight into a telephone box. But Selina wasn't there, so I vandalised the telephone box. The Bakelite splintered obligingly, then retaliated with an electric shock. I hurdled the stairs to my flat with murder smarting in my bitten fingertips. It was empty, of course, bland, blameless, surprised to see me in such a state. At first, when I saw the envelope marked with a florid J, I thought the lying bitch had left me already. Yet her clothes, her elixirs, and her femininity were all still here. "Back around 12, said the note. "Love, Selina." Waiting sounds like a passive thing, but this vigil, this waiting, was active and strenuous as anything I'd ever performed. At midnight she came through the door. Selina looked well. She looked happy, with a funny buzz to her that I'd never seen before. After a while we went to bed and lay together in the dark like patients, waiting for the truth to make its rounds. "I'm pregnant," said Selina Street. I reached for her. "Okay, I ask no questions. All forgiven. Let's get married tomorrow." "It isn't yours," she said, "and I can prove it."
BBC Sounds, music, radio, podcasts.
The telephone rang at 11. I was lying in bed for something to do.
Before me is a list of names, said Terry Linex. One of them's his. Stop me if you've heard it before.
After a while I said, "That's him."
What does the O stand for?
I said, "OSSIE." At 10 o'clock this morning, Selina walked out of my life and into a whole new story. It hurts, but I take my rug off to that Selina, I do. She's going to hit Ozzy Twain with a paternity suit, and she's going to win too, no contest. For a month now she's employed a team of lawyers and medics, and that's why she wouldn't... but you guessed. Me, I feel duped, dead, and yet impressively resilient. Hell, I can butch this out. I rose at 11 and, wearing jeans and gyms, jogged down the drinker. I ate a lot of pub grub, bendy sausages, ginger baked beans, a trough of cottage pie. I drank a lot of pub drink too, traditional ales from the hand pump, fine wines and choicest spirits. I bought an evening paper and a few take-out kebabs. I clipped my fingernails with my teeth. At 5 o'clock I fixed myself a cocktail and blacked out for 4 hours on the couch. I rose again and went back down the drinker. On my way home I looked in at the pizza pouch and had a big, thick, juicy hot one. At the Furter factory I put 3 near-meat long whoppers over my belt and an American whey. And so, at the day's end, I made a pot of tea and curled up with a pint of scotch and a few video nasties to see me through until bedtime. I slept the sleep of the good. All fine, no problem. The Selina thing turned out to be nothing I couldn't handle. Where do they come from, these reserves of strength, courage and willpower? It wasn't until the next day that I started going downhill. Guess how long Ozzy and Selina have been doing their thing? 2 years. Funny, isn't it? Laugh, I nearly died. Ozzy has been fucking Selina for as long as I have. Longer, in fact, if you count the last few weeks. She doesn't like him that much anymore, she said, but on the other hand, he does have an incredible amount of money. When I saw the truth, I went out and drowned my sorrows. Yesterday afternoon, I fell over in the bath and broke a full pint of scotch. Later, I had a hooker in off the street. Nothing happened. She couldn't have been nicer. Do you know why? Because she thought I might be going to murder her, that's why. This morning, as I finally aborted a catastrophic handjob, the telephone rang. It was Cleopatra magazine, asking me to be Bachelor of the Month. Success has not changed me. I'm what I always was. I went for a rug rethink in Queensway this afternoon. 15 quid just for a feminine touch. That's all I was after. The smocked chick fingered my hair and said in her stupid voice, "You're receding." "We all are," I said. "We all are. We are all receding, waving or beckoning or just kissing our fingertips. We are all fading, shrinking, paling. We are losing, losing, losing. Take life away. It's too hard, too difficult. We aren't any good at it." At this moment in time, I am doing something that millions of people all over the planet are longing to do. I am giving Butch Beausoleil one. What a turn-up. We just had lunch in the village, and then no sooner had we stepped through the door of her apartment than she fished a bottle of champagne out of the icebox, gave me a line of cocaine the size of a hangman's rope, and led me playfully into her bedroom. There must be some mistake, I thought, but suddenly she was naked and plucking at the buckle of my own stunned strides. Half an hour later, or thereabouts, Butch murmured, "John, may I say something?" "Yeah," I said unsteadily, straightening up to get a glimpse of her over my gut. There she was, talking right into the mic.
"I agree with Lauren Garland, John. We need the explicit scenes. I think that visually the contrast could be rather beautiful. It has to be made clear that the girl gives herself to the old man out of pity, but also because of her artistic sense. We could have her say something like, 'You are worn and coarse. I am clear and fresh as the morning. I give myself to you, old man, a gift of youth.'" Oh, boy. "Pardon me?" "Where's your John?" I said. I did what I needed to do and made it back to the temperate zones. Butch was sitting up in bed watching an adult movie, silent, hardcore, on a 6-foot screen set into the opposite wall. I joined her. A fat, pale guy was giving a bronzed blonde the treatment on a wobbly iron bed. The production values were low, fixed camera, no variation or close-ups. Quite quickly I realized that the girl was Butch Beausoleil. A little later I realized that the man was John Self, me in other words. The pocked back, juddering beer belly. But no, it wasn't the body. It was the face. Ah, the face. Its elderly winces, its terrible surprise. My mug was really something to see. "You're a very ugly guy, John. I like that in you. I really do."
"Okay, wipe it, the tape, do it."
"No, I won't do that, John. You see, I only ball the same person once. That's why I like to keep it."
"Wipe it, do it."
"Make me."
After she'd wiped the tape, I had a good twisty half Nelson on her by then, she told me she loved being dominated and tried to get me back in the sack. Yeah, I said, "if you behave, I might bring my laundry bag round for you." "Now listen, I don't want to hear any more of your lousy ideas. You're an actress. From now on, you just shut up and do as your Papa Bear says."
"Okay, now come to bed, you ugly bastard."
But I made her get dressed and then I took her for a pizza and a long talking to. That was all over between us, I said. I didn't want to imperil our working relationship, our artistic collaboration there. Fielding Goodney sipped his wine. I made my selection. It was the only dish I could pronounce. I'm up one on Spunk Davis here. He thinks that halibut rhymes with Malibu.
"What did you do to Butch?" said Fielding.
I gave her a little lecture, I said. Dead discreet, you see.
"Well, whatever you did, keep doing it. I don't know how you did it, Slick, but you did it."
How did I do it? I don't know. Films are all luck and anarchy. I said, "It's the new script."
"It's some script. How about that guy? You sure he's a writer? You sure he's not in public relations or voodoo or psychotherapy?"
Fielding shrugged. The manipulation. All he's done is take Doris's screenplay and poured treacle in the works.
Ah, but that's the beauty of it, I said. True, Martin Amis had retained the Doris Arthur outline.
The characters were no less mean and venal, the action no less squalid and compromising. He had simply interwedged a rota system of long monologues in which each of the 4 stars was elaborately praised by the other 3. Thus, after Lorne had been jeered from the marital bedroom, the fecund caduta wryly soliloquizes on her failure to satisfy such an ever-vibrant swordsman as her husband, and so on. Admittedly, Bad Money, new title, was by now a balls-aching read, but the monologues would go straight down the cutting-room toilet. I foresaw no difficulties.
Well, Slick, you won't be needing me that much anymore. From here on in, I'm strictly executive. I got a whole bunch of projects from the overflow on good money. Correction, bad money. The way the dough's coming in, it's unstoppable. I want you to start thinking about your second feature.
You mean that?
Fly out your people, Slick. It's green light time. Hey, I want you to sign some more stuff before you run.
Out on the street, the black autocrat was waiting inexorably. Fielding climbed inside, falling slowly into the seat.
"Isn't he wonderful?"
asked Martina Twain on my first night in New York.
"Don't you think he's beautiful?"
"He looks great," I said.
"You look terrible."
"Yeah, I've had a bad week." Since my last visit, Martina had acquired a bloody fool of a dog, a black Alsatian with tan singlet and tan brows puckered over his beseeching eyes. She'd found him bouncing and tumbling about on 8th Avenue, ownerless, starving. His name was Shadow. I very much approved of this. You don't want dogs called Nigel or Keith. He took to me at once, of course, as dogs do. Boy, was he pro-life. In his wagging, whinnying dog dreams, he never guessed that life could be as sweet as this, shacked up in a duplex on Bank Street with a big basket, a loving mistress, all the food he could bolt, and a handsome new collar of leather and steel, which told the world that he had money behind him now. "No, he's a beauty," I said. She was pleased. She touched my arm as she went upstairs to change, the dog jumping in her wake. I went out onto the terrace with my wine. So, Martina. She knew nothing. Ozzy was simply in London, as he often was. And now I had this fat red trump up my sleeve. Knowledge. How to use it. I would wait until Martina showed signs of listlessness, and then blackjack her with the news. And after that she'd melt into my arms, all dreamy and tearful. Seeing her again, though, in person, the mouth, the human eyes, I've decided. It's all too complicated. I'm not telling her. Toward the end of dinner, in the kind of village salad hutch where the staff looked like orthodontists, I did something right out of character. And I wasn't drunk. I was grimly making do with frequent bidet-sized glasses of white wine. I put my hand over hers on the bare tabletop and said, "Maybe you're a little disappointed. Now, don't get me wrong. I can say this because I'm so lost in my own life. But you hoped yours would be clearer and straighter. I don't really know what I mean. I didn't, either. It was one of my voices." Her hand stirred under mine, so I lit a cigarette as she said, "You think I'm disappointed? I'm not. No more than anyone else." "I'm not being critical," I said. "I've been a joke all along. But you never were."
"Everyone's a joke in the end."
That was as close as we got. She knew nothing. And maybe she need never know. It all came down to money. That's all it came down to. If Ozzy was seriously loaded, and he was, he could hive off a few grand a year and feel no pain. Lucky bugger. I never liked the look of him, one of life's actors. Imagine, Martina in New York, running his duplex, wowing his money men, and for all I knew, proving a nightly sackful. And then after a couple of weeks of that, he hops back over the pond to screw the smocks off Selina. Jesus, it's an outrage. But then money is too. You just cannot beat the money conspiracy. You can only join it. We said good night. Watched by Shadow's desolate eyes, I hailed a cab and climbed on board. One bar, one drink, and then the hotel room, where the telephone was waiting patiently and sounding its greeting, patient and painful, like pain.
BBC Sounds, music, radio, podcasts.
I'm seeing Martina again tonight. Off to the opera, me. Otello. I've never been to the opera before. Do you think it might turn out to be my kind of thing? I'd resolved to rent myself a tux. I ended up in a depressing little place called High, Wide and Handsome, or, let's be accurate, Rent-A-Tent, on the very brink of Harlem, and cobbled together an outfit. I arrived at Bank Street in a fine sweat, boiling for a leak. Before I knew it, I was back in a cab and rolling up river all over again. We were late. Wearing a plain charcoal dress and a single loop of pearls, Martina talked in a sharp voice about the danger of missing the love duets in the first act. She hadn't remarked on my evening wear, the palatinate reefer jacket, the plump-winged bow tie, the pink cummerbund that had taken my fancy, the lacquered spats, so I assumed I looked the part. Opera certainly takes its time, doesn't it? Opera really lasts. It was a jungly night in New York. I began to notice that an impressively candid odour was seeping from my hired jacket. Not one smell, but a deadly anthology of fatso emanations, the trail of the 1,000 soaks and sweats who had used it before me. Each time I squirmed in my seat, the jacket selected another noxious parallel from its quiver. Phew! Martina sniffed and writhed. Gently does it, I thought, and searched for a state of fixity and trance. My need to take a leak, intense enough an hour ago, was now evolving into a new era of detailed distress. I felt I was sitting with a white-hot cannonball on my lap. I considered barging off to the can, of course, but it clearly wasn't done around here. People who go to the opera, they don't go to the toilet, not even at home. I winced and twisted and tried to loosen the bladder-throttling cummerbund. Smells shimmered. Otello howled for his lost handkerchief. The curtain flooded back. The stalls rejoiced. I followed Martina up the aisle. As we came out onto the mezzanine, I saw some kind of toilet logo and burst through the black door of my pain. Ah! Gimps only! There was an electric pram wedged in the doorway, and a white-suited attendant or medic gave me a righteous glare. I stumbled and turned and made out Martina some distance away, sitting alone on a backless sofa and crying openly. I hurried over to her. It's only Otello, I thought. It isn't real, you know. It's make-believe. Christ, what's the matter? I offered her my hand, and she took it and pressed it to her face. Don't go away, she said. Listen. She knew everything. She knew far more than me. But then who doesn't? You do. I sat there, bit my lip and listened. Distant, glowering Aussie had loped in from London that afternoon. There was a confrontation. Martina knew. She had known really for 2 years. He confessed. Selina, the kid, the trap. She kicked him out this afternoon. With her hand still in mine, Martina thanked me for being her friend. Martina, I said, sweethead, It's starting. I must use the can. Go on. Where? There. I can't. It's for cripples. Go on. I emerged 2 minutes later. Are you all right now? She asked. I'm fine, I said. But I wasn't. I was shattered. I couldn't get the fucking cummerbund off. In the end, I merely tautened the noose around the molten melon in my bowels, and pausing only to wipe away my tears, I blundered back through the door. The curtains parted, and the same old story began again. After an hour or so, I'd moved on to a level of self-hypnotic impartiality, of weightlessness. And now, as the thing on the stage came nearer to being over, I heard the woman pleading for forgiveness. Othello. I'll forgive her, for Christ's sake. He holds the pillow now. I can't bear to watch. A tragedy. Don't kill her just for her nature, I thought, with such plunging urgency that the leak-need now resumed its riot, and the rest of the show, to my eyes, was just acid rain. Martina clicked her way up the steps and across the hall. I felt painfully happy. During the last half-dozen curtain calls, I told Martina my problem, and in a moment of hilarious intimacy, she helped gimmick the cummerbund before unleashing me into the first can we could find. "See you tomorrow?" I asked. The lift arrived and slipped its accordion doors. "Yes, but what am I supposed to do about you?" "Nothing." Her smile was amused or indulgent or merely friendly. I moved forward lazily, never stopped now, and when her face showed sudden terror, my first thought was she's overreacting, surely. But then I felt a hard chest against my back and heard the doors jerk shut, and now there were 3 of us in the climbing car. I turned carefully. A big black kid, trembling with a wide-bladed knife in his hands, 8 or 9 inches long. Ah, so it happens. Now what? "Okay, kid," I said. "You got a problem?" "Shut up," said Martina. "The floor! The floor! The floor!" "7," she said. He slapped at the button with his spread left hand. "Money," said Martina Twain. "I have $70 in there. Take it." Martina said to me, "Give him all your money, now." "Why?" "Give it to him." "He hasn't even asked for it yet." The lift stopped and he tugged back the gate. Obedient to a quelling gesture of the raised knife, Martina led the way to her door. "Take our money, please. I promise, I swear we won't do anything." "Open it," he said, and pointed. Martina sifted her keys with an audible sob. The guy stood there, tensed in shivery readiness, his nerves cocked as tight as they'd go, with this sword in his hand, twanging in the light. Martina fumbled. From within there came an anxious bark, and as the eyes went sideways towards the door, I smacked a fat fist into the cable of his jaw. He stood there, staring at me, incredulous, desolate. I thought, now he's going to do what he likes to Martina, yeah, after washing his knife in my face. But then he snapped sideways into the wall, and I brought my big porky knee up and forward into the bare tray of his face. He slid tidily down the wall. I looked down, panting. "Okay," I said. "Call the cops." "You nearly got us killed." "What?" I stared at her. "You give them the money and they're on their way." She opened the door with rattling keys. She returned. "Did they say how long they'd be?" "It's Friday night." "Let me go," said the kid. I had to laugh at this. "Oh, no, you don't, pal. What do you think I am, a liberal?" It's a risky business being mugged in New York. There's the health hazard and the inconvenience. It can turn out expensive, too, apart from anything else. I had the devil's own job just getting the guy on his feet and hauling him into the lift. Now a battered checker was moving slowly down the street. The driver gazed knowingly out at us. "Will you take him?" asked Martina confidentially. "You sick?" "No, he's fine," I said. "Here's a 20. "I ain't doing it," said the driver. "He's a brother, isn't he? God damn it, I'll double it," I said. With a smooth reverse elbow action of his dangling hand, the cabbie unlatched the passenger door. "You're going to give me 50, and 20 for my friend in the back." I looked across the street, and what the hell did I see but the woman, the gingerhead, leaning on a lamp-post, with the cigarette raised, her stance the familiar one of defiance and reproach. "See that woman over there?" I said. "She's been following me."
"That's not a woman," said Martina. "Look at her hands, the shoulders."
Christ, yes, look at the hands. Bloody great wanking paddles. "Come on, brother, let's talk," I said, in fight speak now. But she stepped nimbly out of her shoes and, lifting her dress with one hand, ran purposely towards 7th Avenue. I stood there and watched. Martina, I found, had made up a bed for me on the sitting-room sofa. For a long time I lay there, travelling. I heard crying, the spokings and unzippings of grief when the breath sounds as thick as fluid. I wrapped myself in a sheet and climbed the stairs like a ghost. I opened the door to the sick room. Shadow was lying in her arms, stretched, agonized. He soon slipped down to the floor and shivered with relief, pleased it seemed that a qualified earthling had come to take over. Nothing happened, and yet this happened. I held her hand. I held her shoulder. I stroked her neck with my fingertips to help her sleep. Oh God, I thought with fear, my life could turn really serious. I opened my eyes and turned on my axis. Only a note in her strong, lean hand. She had risen early, as grown-ups will. Would she see me tonight? Love, Martina. I sauntered naked down the stairs. Shadow was dozing in a joist of sandy sunlight. With a flip of his tail he acknowledged me drowsily. Wearing only a cigarette, I fetched myself some orange juice. Then I climbed into my clothes, bid farewell to Shadow, and made for the door. Martina had locked me in. Well, I had nowhere I needed to be. Eventually I heard Shadow's orgasmic yelp and the sound of sharp footsteps speedily mounting the stairs. Martina threw open the door.
"I locked you in. Why don't you get into bed? I'll have a shower and I'll come and join you."
Christ, her eyes are fire to me. When my lips meet hers, so carefully, so critically, it is the kiss of life. It is the kiss of death. Will I stay there in her light? I can't believe it somehow. But I'm trying. God damn it, I'm trying. And it's all happening. I am a director now, and I must do what directors do. On day one of principal photography, we start shooting. On day one of principal photography, I get a check for several $100,000. Isn't it unbelievable? I'm hoping this will do wonders for my confidence and thrust, of which more later. I enter the apartment with my own set of keys, my own set, giving the bell a discreet prod, just to say I'm home. I walk out onto the terrace with a glass of white wine. I tell Martina about my day. We eat omelettes, salads, white meat, white wine. Then there is music, but jazz, opera, classical. I finish the wine. It is all very civilized. The time has surely come for me to tell you about me, Martina, and the... Yes, the time has surely come. We've sacked out together, 10 nights running, and I've yet to... I don't seem to be able to... There, you've said it for me. They're very difficult. They're not at all easy. That's why they're called hard-ons. It doesn't matter, she said last night, for the 20th time. I lay there, a 16-stone teardrop, blinking and smarting, all made of salt. Oh, yeah? I croaked. Jesus, I said. What do I think is the point of me?
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
I took Shadow for his walk and went to bed with Martina Twain. I don't really want to talk about it. At the moment, the gimmick is that we just spoon and cuddle, cuddle and spoon. Nothing happens. Nightly I die a Desdemona death among the many pillows. First thing yesterday I tried to spring a morning glory on her. You can imagine how glorious that felt. It didn't work anyway. Sometimes I think that my dick was traumatised by that boil-up at the opera. But there's probably more to it than that. Yes, there's probably more to it. Anyway, I had to leave the girl, goddammit, and bolt across town to clock up an hour or two at the reception thrown by Fielding Goodney for our money men. I mean, bad money. What is the operation costing now? It has to be 35 or 40 big ones a day, and we don't even start shooting until next week. I awaited Fielding's grave, complicit nod, and then slipped outside and caught a cab downtown. And 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. I'm lying on the floor of my hotel room and wiggling my legs in the air like an upturned beetle. I'm staying in shape for Martina. This is my metamorphosis. The phone rang.
Hi. Hey. It's me, remember?
You're kidding, I said. Are you in New York?
You bet.
You can't be.
Why not? Let's meet and I'll fill you in.
Why? Little Selina. We arranged to have drinks at the Bartleby on Central Park South. She sat surrounded by the ritzy hampers of Fifth Avenue loot.
You look different, she said.
How?
More in control.
So do you. You look the same, only more so. She had acquired what she had wanted all along. She had the colour now, the money tone. Among other things, Selina was over here to firm up her settlement. Ozzy was in town too, somewhere. Although it was finished between them, he continued to be very good about it all.
You know, it's funny how sentimental I am about you.
She leaned forward.
I meant to get you a present, but I ended up just getting presents for me. Look, isn't this nice? Expensive. It clips between my legs. Feel. I was thinking of trying them all on. Here, in my suite. Do you want to come and watch?
I looked carefully into her face, into her high street eyes. I felt danger. Selina was right. I had changed. I saw her offer and the attempt, the attack it made on me, and so, with my vows to Martina still warm on my lips, I smiled with regret and shook my head and paused before saying, "You bet." The champagne was on its way. Yeah, where's my champagne? Selina, she really has the franchise on these old loins of mine. Little Selina, that's Selina. There was a knock.
Yes,
she said fiercely.
Come on in.
Then more softly.
The champagne. They'll leave it there.
Then more softly still.
Don't stop.
But I started to struggle even as I felt the double doors waft open and the third presence enter our space. In one movement, Selina sat up and turned, straightened a leg and swivelled like a gymnast to her feet. I raised my neck and stared. A pretty adult situation, no, wouldn't you think? With Selina now tightening the belt of her sheer negligée and Martina fixed in the frame of the doorway. A pretty adult situation. And yet Martina looked like a child. Her eyes dropped and wondered. She said,
I've lost shadow.
Oh no.
Over the rooftops.
And then she ran too. At last I rolled over and reached for my clothes. The pants, the dead suit. It took forever to crawl into those dead clothes of mine.
What was all that about?
Selina was saying in her tightest voice.
No, don't tell me. You've been fucking her, haven't you? What a joke.
What was she doing here?
How should I know?
Downstairs, I drank 12 bourbons, yes, that's it, drink your hemlock, and called Martina's number until my ripped fingers bled. No answer. Engaged. That hateful sound. And as I sat slumped at the bar, I heard something that in all my life I never expected any pleasure from. The sound of my own name, John Self, paged on the public address, and I thought, it's her. Yeah, I said into the phone. The end. All over. The voice, that gimp laugh. Frank. You, I said. Oh, please, come on, let's do it, now. Okay, listen. There's a car park back of that porno store where you hang out. Now. Ready. I was ready. There was the sawn-off metal door of a flat-roofed go-down. Yeah, this was a good place for fighting. And then there was the sense of shadow dropping on me as a heavy thing fell lightly to its feet and 2 long arms snapped shut across my heart. I sensed with a gasp that my feet were off the ground. All I could try was the reverse headbutt. But where was his head, for Christ's sake? I couldn't find it. But I'm strong too, goddammit, and I've never felt madder. I felt my face purpling, and it was this other fight, this fight for air, that showed me how. I turned my gouged face until it would turn no further. It was inches away, and my strength was just hissing off me now. In one staggering swivel, I turned and caught him full in the face with the back of my fist, then swung my foot for the final blow. And you know what I'd done? I had kicked the face of a woman. Our eyes met horribly. I had seen those eyes before, but not in that face. Now the hair fell away. There it shivered in its indeterminate smock. Who are you? I said. It was no woman. There was a single tap on the door of my room at the Ashbury, and Felix eased himself into the room with sudden speed, the way cigarette smoke surges around corners into the draught. Felix, I said thickly, what's the matter? It's over. What have you done, man? Felix told me that all America was interflexed by computer processors whose roots looped like a web from city to city, snorting, clearing, holding, okaying, denying. And now all the states were keying in my name. I was a money enemy, and the tab police were on my tail. Pack a bag. It's just some cock-up. Pack a bag. His eyes were incensed, imploring. They ran your name through 10, 15 times. I tell you, man, you're out for a whole lot of money. I didn't even pack a bag. Felix took me down in the staff elevator and out through the kitchens. Thanks. I put a hand in my pocket. I gave Felix a 5. He glanced at the note in his hand, gave it back to me. No, man, he said with a snort. You don't understand. This whole thing, it's all over. I am something unbelievable going forward. 16 stone of flash and hurtle. In through the caraway foyer and up the stairs with my head down. The double doors were open to air the sick room. With a sheet over his shoulders, Fielding sat at the window on a straight-backed chair. He turned slowly as he sensed my approach. The swollen mouth, the loss of something vital in the line of jaw. The money, I said. Where's the money? There's no fucking money. I opened my hands at the room and its furniture, at the chandelier, at New York. Who's paying for all this? You are. Oh, what have you done? He looked at me drolly. Something jagged lisped in his mouth as he said, in explanation, I'm 45, slick. And I went on running. The next place where I did a lot of running was the dark, flat bowl of JFK with crucified planes fleeing and screaming over my head. The first terminal I tried was Trans-American. I walked briskly up to ticketing. No problem, said the peanut from under his hat. Suavely, I handed over my platinum US approach card. He keyed in my name and number, said, "Just one moment, sir," and backed away through the low door. I took up position near the glass gates to the forecourt. Yeah, sure enough, my guy emerged, flanked by 2 plainclothesmen. Airport security? No, just money police. Filth. I was out and off and running again. I went through my pockets looking for money, or a means to it. Opera dockets, cigarette coupons, passport, tax demands, shooting schedules, no money, an unused airline ticket. An unused airline ticket. Airtrack. New York to London. Remember that time when Fielding gave me the first-class ticket at the Berkeley? Well, I never used the Airtrack ticket. I bought the same day with my own sweet money. And here it was. A little crinkled, to be sure, but still valid, still good. As the plane levelled, I lit my last cigarette. Slowly I sipped its fire. No snout was ever sweeter. And then something happened. Something vast and full of rage now took us in its chaos. At last the plane panned out. The pilot's voice came on the line. "You'll notice we're going into a wide turn at this time. It looks like I'm out of a job, too. So, ladies and gentlemen, I have to tell you that this is Airtrack's last flight. They've pulled the plug on the whole operation. Please fasten seatbelts. Thank you." I expect you're wondering how I escaped from New York. I expect you're wondering who tabbed my flight. Martina? No. Alas, no. Not Martina. Selena Street cabbed straight out here, that heroine. She picked me up and whisked me off to brunch at the Welcome Inn near LaGuardia. "Yesterday with Martina," I said as I removed the celery and watermelon from my first Bloody Mary. "It was a set-up, wasn't it?" "Yes, I'm sorry," she said. Typical Selena, I thought. The set-up was pornography, and I did the rest. "Ozzy and I had a lot of laughs bringing you two together. It was neat." "Did you love me?" She gave a shrug that expressed not indifference, but a self-girding, a shoring up. "I wouldn't want you to be happy with anyone else." Selena booked a room and led me there like a mother. I fell down on that bag and was out of it by the second bounce. I woke up to find that Selena had settled the bill and left me the standby fare plus $30 drinking money, like the good moll she was. I'm home. I'm home. But I'm still running.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
3:10 in the Shakespeare. My fat pal, Fat Paul, was gathering glasses and calling time. No Fat Vince, and I could have done with his hand on my shoulder. I pushed through the vault of mirrors into the back room. Vron was there. She was lying on the sofa, drinking pink champagne. I loomed bulkily in the doorway. I said, "Where's Barry?" "Down the better." She straightened herself and looked at me with a different lens. "How long will he be?" "Ages," she said. Her elbow slipped and she laughed without meaning. "Time for my rehearsals." "For what?" "For my glamour work, John." She gathered her gown. She lifted the glass, 3 swallows, 4 swallows. She moved at an angle towards the staircase. She took my hand. "This is the room where my mother slept. This is where she died." On the bed, another bed, coated in silk of piercing green, Vron lay deep in the royalty of her robe. Her eyes never meeting mine, Vron sat up and full-throatedly untethered her hair. Now the robe slipped from her shoulders. I stumbled forward a pace or two, but it was hard, because hardcore makes the air so thick. Hardcore makes the air as hard as steel. My thing with Vron, it was all over in less than a minute. Oh, easily. I turned. Barry Self stood at the bedroom door. "There goes your money, John," he said, dryly. I pushed past him and ran down the stairs. I knew it wasn't finished, not yet, not by any means. The talented Fat Paul stood waiting in the empty bar. He held a black sock in his hand. I knew what this meant. "Well," Fat Paul explained, "you can't walk away, can you? Not from that. Fair's fair, John. I mean, they only got married Tuesday." He walked through the trap to the curved till. He took 2 tubes of bank-packed coins. He dropped them into the sock and tugged on the dark scrotum. "Fat Paul, listen," I said. "Money, what's he giving you? 50 quid or something? I'll give you $1,000. Let me run." Fat Paul frowned. "Come on, John. Be realistic." He came towards me. "Where?" I asked him. "The face." "How many?" "Just the one." "All right." "Sorry, John." I stood my ground to make the next thing nearer to being over. I saw the arm start its swing. After a while I heard the bolts being cracked back, and there was Barry Self helping me out into the mist and the flare. He looked down at me with scorn and delight. The scorn had always been there, but the delight was new. He'd waited a long time for that delight. 35 years. "Well, old son, now we're quits." "You," I said, "you're my fucking father." "I'm not your father," he said, and he told me who was. "Oh, you great pillock. Don't you know anything, you bitch's bastard?" I feel better now, funnily enough. In fact, the future looks really bright now that I've decided to kill myself. Tonight, I've got the doings here in my sock. Tonight, alone. Last thing. "Thanks again for coming over," I said. Martin Amis stirred.
"I've been thinking about your little adventure in New York,"
he said.
"Do you want to hear my theory? The money men didn't have any money. They were all actors. And given the stars Fielding Goodney had signed up, given their neuroses and delusions, the Doris Arthur script was designed to be absolutely unworkable. Watching you trying to coax the life into it would have made quite a spectacle."
"Go on," I said. Suddenly I was seeing the light.
"Those girls you said were chasing you, they were on the payroll too. Fielding was hooked. On the fiction, the art. A failed actor, he wanted an actor's revenge. And I think I've worked out how he did it, money-wise. How much are you out on the whole deal, personally?"
"Not that much. Fielding paid for nearly everything."
"Wrong. It's finally come to me, and it is beautiful. You signed a lot of documents. My guess is that you signed them all twice. Once under co-signatory, once under self. It was your name. The company you formed wasn't Goodney and Self. It was Self and Self. The hotels, the plane tickets, the limousines, the wage bill, the studio rental, you were paying. It was you."
I clamped my hands over my ears. Martin talked on, shadowy, waxy, flicker-faced. I didn't see my first swing coming, but he did. I hurled myself around that room like a big ape in a small cage, but I could never connect. The room tipped and tunneled and fled screaming into the night. When I awoke, Martin was gone, and there was no sound anywhere. Just after dawn, I walked out into the streets for the last time. Then I returned. What is there to say? I lined up the bottles of scotch, Martina's tranquilizers, plus 40 more from my kitchen pill jar. I downed the pills in fistfuls. my life was a joke. My death will be serious. It is Christmas time in London. Martin was right. I'm the last to know, as usual. But my lawyers have finally established who was tabbing the whole psychodrama. Me, Muggins here. Why didn't I look at all the stuff he made me sign? Oh, I was a pup, let's face it. Still, he charmed and gulled lots of other people too. I have proof of this because until recently I was being indicted by 8 or 9 of them, including Lorne Guyland, Caduta Massey, Butch Beausoleil and Spunk Davis. In the end I called all 4 stars and just sobbed out my story. Fielding is now undergoing psychiatric tests at a correctional facility in Palm Springs. And Fat Vince has found me a job working as a minder for a Hyde Park ice cream van. He thinks I may have a future in the bouncing business. If we all downed tools and joined hands for 10 minutes and stopped believing in money, then money would no longer exist. We never will, of course. Maybe money is the great conspiracy, the great addiction too. You just can't kick it, that junk, even if you want to. You can't get the money monkey off your back. As for my suicide bid, well, the whole thing was a total disaster, as you've gathered. I finished a bottle and a half of scotch and swallowed my 90 tranks. This suicide lark, I thought, it's a doddle. I sat and waited. Then fear came. It was then that I must have had my first major rethink. Look, I didn't mean it, I kept shouting. So I had a few drinks and things got out of hand. Can't a guy make one mistake? So I just paced and paced for as long as it took. By mid-morning I felt so pooped that I thought I might as well hit the sack, come what may. You know what saved me? Martina's tranquilizers, I suspect, were placebos. I recall dissolving a couple of them one time in New York and thinking how like aspirin they looked and tasted. But it was nearly a week before I could say with any confidence, yes, I'm sure I'm alive again. Now you'll understand that I don't remember much about that night and that dark morning. And yet it was a time when I did a lot of remembering. I remembered that time up on 95th Street when Doris Arthur led me from the restaurant and placed her lips on my cheek and murmured, "You asshole, it's all a joke. Fielding's taking you. It's a game, a ride. Step off the train, step off." I remembered that time in the Irish bar opposite Zelda's, being kissed by the gingerhead with Fielding's eyes. "You know who I am," it whispered. "It's me. I'm your producer." And me sitting there nodding, smiling, cretinized. I got a new girlfriend, thank Christ. She's called Georgina. She's a big girl, a nurse, which is just what the doctor ordered. I met her in the Blind Pig, or was it the Butcher's Arms? I was face down at the time. I write to Martina twice a week, nothing back yet, I still hope. My love letters may not be great works of art, but they're fucking sincere, I tell you that. I have written to Selena too. That might be a more realistic ending. God damn it, I hardly drink anymore. Just a barley stout, 2 particular brew, a whiskey tack and a few ginger perries, or a bottle of Cyprus sherry or Bulgarian port to lower me into the night. All I can afford. Late this afternoon I showed up at Georgina's with a bottle of Desdemona cream. Georgina wasn't home yet and I keep losing the keys she gives me. It was cold, but not that cold. I sat myself down on a bench near the open mouth of the underground station. I was wearing my old donkey jacket. Few fathers have abused their sons as Barry Self has abused me. But Barry Self is not my father. Fat Vince is my father. In a sense, then, my life has been a joke right from the start. Right from the womb. Right from the first twinkle in Fat Vince's eye. I uncapped the Desdemona cream and enjoyed a festive swig. Lispingly I whistled and sang and babbled of Fielding, Lorne, Caduta, Butch and Spunk, the whole hysteria, the whole conspiracy. I've settled the motivation question. I supplied it all. The confidence trick would have ended in 5 minutes if it hadn't been for John's self. I was the key. I was the needing, the hurting artist. I was the wanting artist. I wanted to believe. I wanted that money so bad. Fat Vince and I have had our confrontation. We wept it all out in the back room at the snooker hall. "You should have told me, Vince," I said. "It wasn't for me to tell you, son." I stared into his face, his flummoxed, his snookered face. "I'm proud to call you father." "And I am. He's a great man in his way, Fat Vince. I'd say he's a definite improvement. And Georgina loves me. She does, she said so. Tonight I'm going to make it clear just how grateful I am. Without Georgina, I'd be a dead man. If I stay poor, then Georgina may stay in luck. I think she must have had a pretty rough run of guys, that Georgina." It's colder now. I feel it, and I feel in need of shelter. With a soft salute, I removed my cap. My cap, my cloth cap, is designed to keep my hair in some kind of order. Georgina cuts it now. Here, I drink, I sing, I babble with my missing tooth. The people hurry from the underground. And then I felt a light and sudden plop on the loose covers of my groin. I looked down. A 10-penny piece nestled in my cap. Well, you've got to laugh. You've got to. I'm not proud. Don't hold back on my account.